So with that, I am going to turn it over to our moderator, who I will tell you is someone that I have a high level of respect for in many ways. Brian Treece is the president and CEO of the Findlay-Hancock County Community Foundation in Northwest Ohio, in Findlay, Ohio. Brian actually started off as one of the original coaches for Community Heart and Soul, and has now ascended to the position of president and CEO, and now has someone on his team that is also a coach. He remains a certified coach with Community Heart and Soul, but it makes him a natural leader for today's discussion. So with that, please give Brian a big round of applause, and I'm going to sit down and let him take it away.
All right, good morning, everybody. Thank you for being here. We're going to start with introductions, but instead of reading long bios that you can find other places, we are going to tell a little bit about our heart and soul story, and then a couple interesting things about ourselves. So, like Al said, we were one of the original partners with Community Heart and Soul. We've implemented it in 4 communities in our county. Some interesting things about me. If you've talked to me for more than 30 seconds, you know I'm a dad of a 6-year-old daughter. I also enjoy travel and cruising, and when you think about, I think all of us had a life before community foundations. So my life before working at a community foundation, I was in higher education in student affairs. So shout out to everybody from higher ed who's now at a foundation. Jason.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Jason Neises. I'm the Community Development Officer at the Community Foundation of Greater Dubuque. We cover a 7-county region in eastern Iowa, most of which is very rural, so most of my time is spent working in rural communities. My wife and I have 2 boys, an 18-year-old and a 12-year-old, and we live on a little farm north of Dubuque, and we plant about half an acre of pumpkins every year and sell them out of our driveway. There's a milk can with the slot cut in the top, and people put their money in. It's kind of self-serve. It's very Iowan. And so that's kind of a fun little tidbit. I also give architecture tours in Dubuque as kind of a hobby. So.
All right, good morning, everybody. Thanks for joining us. My name is Kelly Anoe. I'm the president and CEO at Legacy Foundation. We're the community foundation for Lake County, Indiana. I've been in this role for 3 years, but I've been with the foundation for almost 11. And similar to Brian, I got my start really doing the community engagement work and working with residents and directly in the communities and neighborhoods. And so this is an area of deep passion for me. Personally, I enjoy camping, hiking, visiting our country's great national parks. I've been to over half of them, and enjoy kind of amateur photography. Thanks.
All right. Thanks, Kelly. Good morning. My name is Josh Kaiel, and I'm the Community Development Director for the Innovia Foundation in Spokane, Washington. We cover 20 counties, 10 in eastern Washington and 10 in northern Idaho. And we do have a lot of rural communities. I came on about a year ago and jumped right into Community Heart and Soul, managing the program for our foundation. And we have rolled out 8 communities over the past year. Interesting things about me: I've been married 27 years. I have 2 daughters, 17 and 22, and I like to eat probably the stinkiest fruit in the world.
What is it?
It's called the durian fruit. Anyone tried it? All right. Oh, we've had 3 people.
10 out of 10 do not recommend. Wanted to set a few expectations for the session. If you couldn't already tell, we are going to be really talking about one specific model, which is the Community Heart and Soul model. We are going to highlight the work through a series of case studies to talk about how we've implemented it in our community foundation work. There will be plenty of time for Q&A at the end. And then Al already talked about the dinner tonight if you are at all interested in learning more. We're going to start with Jason. We'll be talking about the readiness assessment and a little overview of what the model looks like.
So as part of our readiness assessment, we really need to understand what is community leadership like? What are community assets like in that town that we're going to be able to leverage for this community engagement process? So there is a QR code up on the screen. I'm going to ask you all to participate a little bit in one of these activities that we do with communities. We need to understand not just what the financial resources are, but what's the human capital that's available in these towns to undertake this work, because it is a resident-driven process. We all serve as coaches. We're not actually living in the towns that do this process. So we need to know how ready are they to undertake this process themselves. So the questions that you're going to see on the screen, they're all samples of what we use in our readiness inventory. And I will encourage you, you all are not in a community, so this is not scientific or anything. I just want you to participate and see what our residents have to do, but don't overthink this, like, I don't know what leadership is like in my town. Just answer it, and we'll kind of see how it all works out, okay? But your options that you're gonna see on the screen are strength, which is something that your town already does well. And think about your own town, like the town that you live in, where you are from. An opportunity is something that we value, but we could do it a little bit better. Mixed is, sometimes we do it, sometimes we don't, or not everybody in this town shares that value, and unsure is, you don't know. And be sure when you do your choice on the screen, make sure to hit submit at the bottom. You might have to scroll up a little bit to find the submit button to make sure that your vote gets registered. Is everybody mostly on board? Okay, first question. My community generally understands the community heart and soul model and the benefits of deep community engagement. So again, just kind of choose one, hit submit, and move on. Don't overthink it too much. And we should see the results pop up here. Just make sure you hit submit. And I would hope that there are a lot of unsure. Since you're here to learn more about it, that's fine. Municipal officials are in support of using the community heart and soul model. So again, these are questions that we're asking residents to see how much work we have to do, what kinds of work we have to do to get into this process. Leaders in my community are trusted, responsive, and accessible. It starts to get real in these towns pretty quick when we're asking people questions like this. And Josh and I were talking before the session, the value sometimes of doing these kinds of things anonymously and not asking people to raise their hands in a group when you're in a community meeting to say, yeah, I don't think our leaders are responsive. And the leader is sitting right next to you. Not great. So mixed seems to be the consensus there. My community actively works to develop new leaders, both formal and informal. Something we could all probably do better. But this just gives us an idea of what's the leadership capacity in the community. How much are they thinking about this kind of work? My community has a shared vision for its future that is based on what matters most to residents. Are community leaders asking for that kind of input? Are they using it to make decisions? Oh, there we go. Oh, a little bit of a lag. Okay, but that sounds like that's an opportunity for a lot of places, or a lot of you could see that as something you need to work harder on, and that's good for our process. It means that there's an opportunity for folks to learn and grow. My community brings groups together, coordinating between organizations and giving everyone an opportunity to connect. Are they involving everyone in the community in different kinds of decisions? Mixed, and it's an opportunity seems to be the consensus there. That's good. So thank you everybody for indulging me a little bit. Hopefully that gives you a little bit of a taste. We have a much more extensive inventory that we do with groups before we kind of enter into this, and it's a good self-check for them too. Like, maybe we aren't ready for this. Maybe we don't have the capacity for this. And because this process is resident-driven, we cannot go into a community that isn't ready to do the work. So we spend a lot of time in this readiness phase to make sure that they're ready. Because what you're...
Can I interject just a quick question? Can you explain the program that you used to do that activity, Mentimeter?
Oh, yes. I used a tool called Mentimeter. You can kind of see it up in the corner there. There's a little logo. It's an online tool. Parts of it are free if you want to use it, but there are paid versions as well that have additional functionality. But it is a good way to get anonymous feedback from a group. The only caveat being it takes a smartphone to do it. So if you're working in a very rural area that might not have good Wi-Fi or good internet connectivity, it can be a challenge, but yeah.
Thank you.
So the reason why we spend a lot of time on readiness is because this is a resident-driven process. And we as coaches walk our towns through what you're seeing on the screens here, which is a 4-phase process that empowers residents to take action in their communities and gather people together. And it's very closely aligned with the work that we already do as community foundations, which is why our foundation chose to do it in our rural towns, because every rural town knows they need to do something. If we're gonna keep our residents here, if we're gonna grow our economy and those sorts of things, we have to do something, but where do you start? So I, as a coach, can walk them through this 4-phase process, and each one of these phases has training that I deliver in the community. There are tools, there are lesson plans, there are templates, there are checklists, there are schedules, and people like that. They wanna know what's next. They wanna know what that process is. So that's why I value it as a tool that I can use in my rural communities, as I can walk them through these 4 phases. Phase 1, the imagine phase, is really where we start to help them think about what are those resources that we're assessing, what's the human capital, what's the financial capital that we have in our community to do this work. And that's, of course, something we do as community foundations all the time, right? We're trying to find who are the leaders, who are my connectors in the community. That's what we do in phase 1, is we gather our team, we get those folks together and understand what resources we're going to have moving forward in this process. Phase 2 is connect. So we're actually trying to now connect people in the community together, help them understand not just telling me about this data, telling each other. It's about the relationships and the trusted relationships that we build between residents that really it's the magic of this process. Don't tell me, I don't even live in the community. Don't give me the data. You are the ones who are going to analyze the data that we're collecting about what matters most and how are we going to make this community even better. Because this is an asset-based process. We're not fixing problems. We're not fixing something that's broken. We're taking something that folks already love and making it better. Now, are those solutions sometimes the same thing, like fixing something that's broken and making it better? It's the same thing sometimes. But that positive narrative that we're creating is what small towns need. And that's we create that narrative in phase 2. In phase 3, we are helping communities decide how do they prioritize these ideas for action? How do we make a plan that works for us, given our resources, given what we understand now about what folks love about their town? How do we now do it? So I work side by side with the town to help them prioritize ideas for action. And I give them tools and coaching about how to do that, because by the time we get done with phase 2, they might have 300 ideas for action, and they can't do them all. So I walk them through this process. And again, that's smart for me as a foundation person, because I want to make sure our philanthropy is going into projects that they really care about. They're going to have the biggest impact, right? That's a struggle for all of us as foundation people, and this gives me the tools to know how we're investing in those small towns. Phase 4 is ACT. So this is where we create stewardship plans, because we all know that the death of all strategic planning and action planning is when you have a nicely designed binder, and the binder goes where? On the shelf. We've all done it 1,000 times, right? We've seen it happen. So how are we creating the mechanisms in a town that are going to carry this work forward? And a lot of it is tied to the fact that in phase 2, we create what we call our heart and soul statements. These are the things that the residents tell us they really care about. It might be their education. It might be the small town feel. It might be the natural beauty. Those are the guiding principles that carry this forward into phase 4. Like if you want to continue improving those things that you really, really love, you've got to say it out loud, and you've got to have a team, and you've got to have a process in place that carries it forward. And the other part about phase 4 that's really relevant to me as a foundation person is that we're there for the long haul. We're not going anywhere. Our endowments and our donor advised funds are going to be there forever to help steward this work forward. So even after the phases are done, I'm still in touch with those towns, and I'm still helping them kind of fulfill their dreams in their philanthropic world. So now Kelly is going to talk a little bit about some of the guiding principles that drive this work.
All right, thanks. So I'll talk a little bit about the principles and the why of us doing this work. So there's 3 principles of community heart and soul: involve everyone, focus on what matters most, and play the long game. So involve everyone. You want to make sure that you're looking at your community and that you're getting and hearing the voices of everybody in your community. Ages, demographics, that people aren't left out, because if you have a plan at the end and there's a certain segment of the population that it's like, well, we weren't asked what we thought, we weren't asked for our opinion, then that would be a hindrance to the community truly believing in and adopting the plan. If, let's say, you just have, I know for us, we get a lot of seniors that turn out at our events, right? So if, the plan is, the average age of this plan is 68 years old for the feedback that you're getting, then maybe that's not reflective of what the community truly wants and needs. So make sure that you're going to places where different groups of people are and you're getting different voices. Focus on what matters most. So turning stories from residents into priorities for the future. As you hear these stories, focus on the things that really matter to the people who are sharing their stories and who are expressing what they want to see for their community. And play the long game. Building change, creating change doesn't happen quickly. And so I think that needs to be something that, is understood with us, with the people that we're working with and the residents, is that, you can have your low-hanging fruit and you can see some things start to happen quickly, but really this is a long game. It's a long-term relationship with the communities that you're working with, so that we can, over time, see the change start to happen. And so, when we heard these principles for my foundation at Legacy Foundation, it's something that really spoke to me and to our board. Community engagement is something that we've really taken, as one of our key pillars and priorities over the past 10 years as a foundation. And we've had different models, different tools, different versions of community engagement over the years. We've brought on, we've paid consultants to create programs and to create tools. We've brought in people to help develop new programs. We've made up our own. We've purchased programs. So we've kind of been through a couple of different versions of tools and models for community engagement as we've kind of evolved in our transition from a transactional to a transformational community foundation. And, when I learned about community heart and soul, I think for me, it really spoke to us as a foundation because it connects all of these different tools that we've used over the years of, bringing residents together, building community leadership, having their voices heard, putting it all together in the plan, where we're working with them over a period of time. We're committed, we're here, we're, as a community foundation, we're in the community, right? We're in it with you, we're not going anywhere. And so we'll be there, from the first conversation through the act phase. And so, for us at our foundation, it really made a lot of sense to go in this direction. And I remember, when I had the first call with the Heart and Soul team, I was like, okay, well, what's the cost? And they're like, nothing. I was like, really? Where's the hidden fees, And They cover all the coach training. They provide all the tools, all the resources, all the materials. You're not having to pay for consultants on the side or anything like that. So, it's really, and they also provide seed grants to your community. So once they develop the plan, then Community Heart and Soul will, offer a seed grant to your community. Am I allowed to say the amount? It's $10,000 for your community to implement or start toward implementation of that, plan that they've developed with your foundation. So, not only are you not paying anything, but you're also getting funding, which that seed grant comes through the foundation to the community. So we're able to work with them then on implementing that. So for us, it really made a lot of sense. We are in our second year now of actually working with the Heart and Soul model. So we're just doing one community at a time. We selected our process for selecting, and the application process that we work with is we do open it up to the communities within our county to apply if they're interested. And, we take them through a couple of activities and exercises as part of the application process. So kind of like Jason showed you, the readiness inventory. We'll take them through things like that so that they can start thinking about their readiness and have conversations with us as well about if this is something that they think that they're ready for, because it does take, you need to have volunteers in the community. You need to have a dedicated core group who's willing to put in the time, put in the effort to have the conversations, pull people together. Some communities we think, maybe you're not ready this year, but we'll work with you over the next year and you'll be ready next year. So we do have them submit an application then with a couple of the activities attached so that we know that they've started thinking about those things and having those conversations. And then from there, we, have selected the community that's the most ready. And any that are not selected, though, we continue working with them to further engage their residents, to keep having the conversations, to build community leadership so that they can be, ready to apply the next year. And so I think that's all I have for now, and I'll turn it over to Josh.
Thanks, Kelly. All right, so my two slides are going to cover story gathering, the phase 2, and that's where our communities are at, how we started, and why we did it. One of our mission statements is building thriving communities, and throughout our region, there's a lot of communities that weren't thriving. Either they were dying because economically, or there was political polarization going on in a lot of the communities that we saw. And so our CEO went to a conference, I think, and heard about Heart and Soul and decided, we're going to do this, and we're not going to do this in a small way. We're going to roll this out kind of in a shotgun approach. We're going to bring on 10 new communities. And so that's what we did. And I came on board about a year ago. And prior to that, Heart and Soul came out to Spokane, Washington, and held a series of readiness webinars for communities throughout our region. And those who went through that readiness process had the ability to apply for the grant. And so 8 communities applied, and we onboarded those communities, and we're now in phase 2 with most of the communities that we're with. And phase 2 is the heart of Heart and Soul. It's the story gathering part. There's two types of data or stories that you're gathering. It's thin data and there's thick data. And the thin data is, what matters to, what do you love most about your community? And then the thick part of it is the why. What do you love most about your community and why? And that really comes down to, what matters most to them, what their hopes and concerns are, and what their ideas for action. And so what we've seen through this process is the framework focuses the community on in such a positive way that it's uniting. It's bringing neighbors together that typically wouldn't sit down at the table and have conversations. It's bringing humanity to community conversations and dialogues. I was just at a community a couple of weeks ago where it was very difficult for people to sit in the same room, even look across the table at each other. And we had 50 to 60 people show up for this readiness event. And because of the way that the questions and tools and activities were set up, it framed things in a way where they couldn't focus on division. They could only focus on what they cared about, what their hopes for the future were, and after that session, I had someone come up to me and say, you know what, I've never seen our community act like this or have conversations like this and have such deep dialogue about our future. It's always about, what isn't working, how we're divided, et cetera. So Heart and Soul has been a real critical piece in the work that we're doing within communities. And we actually have a video that we're going to share of one of our communities that's about 40 miles north of Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, where there's a lot of political polarization going on and racial issues. And so this is a community that in and of itself is, there's people that don't like their city government. There's all kinds of issues going on there. But they had a group of individuals from their community that really cared a lot about solutions and making things happen for the community. And I'll let this video speak for itself.
So I've got a case study too about how we have worked with towns to steward this work out into the future. So once you kind of work your way through the readiness phase, gather those stories, and once communities have their priorities in place, how do you mobilize them to action and continue to invest in things that communities care about? So I'm working in a small town right now called Piasta. And 20 years ago, Piasta was a gas station and a tavern, and they had a branch of the local community college there. The population was about 150 people. Jumping ahead to 2025, there's over 2,000 people there. So it's very close to Dubuque, which is kind of the micropolitan center of our 7-county region. So it's experienced rapid growth, but it doesn't have a sense of there. There's no little historic downtown. The growth has been kind of unplanned. So there's no city center, and there's lots of suburban areas where people kind of stay in their houses and don't talk to each other, and there's no sidewalks and things like that. So they don't have a good sense of place. What's the story of Piasta? You could ask 20 people, and all 20 of them would have a different story. But they want to mobilize, they want to organize together and be sure they're pulling the right kinds of resources into their community. So they started Heart and Soul as a way to create a positive narrative, like we're not just a bedroom community, we're not just a place that people come and live there for the good schools and then don't do anything in town. We want to create the sense of community. And we have a program at our foundation called Small Town Dreams, and it's an endowment building program where we had an anonymous donor gave us $1 million. And he said, I'm going to give 10 towns a $100,000 match if they raise $350,000. And that $450,000 then will be used to create a community-based, a place-based endowment that will pay out forever for the betterment of that community. And that sounds great if you have the resources locally to raise that large match, and if you know what you're going to do with the money. As you all know, giving away money and doing grant making, it's not easy. If you don't have high quality applications, if the town doesn't know what they want, How would they raise this money? What are you going to tell a donor? Say, hey, we think you're good for $50,000 for this endowment. What are you going to use it for? And if they don't know, they're not going to get the large donations for that endowment. So there are towns that we work with, if they don't have a good plan, they do heart and soul first. They get their residents together. They do that hard work of building that plan, building community, building those connections. They then use the data that they got from Heart and Soul as their case statement for their endowment building campaign. So when those donors ask, well, what kinds of projects are going to get funded by this? Well, I'm glad you asked. We've got 2,000 people in this community. We got responses from 800 of them. This is what they want. And this is why these things matter, because they care about the natural beauty. They care about the small town feel. They care about incubating small businesses. Those are the values they care about, and here are the actions. It's much more likely that donor is going to pitch in. The other thing that Piasta needed was to build a sense of trust among residents, because like Josh was saying before, the city leadership is not necessarily trusted in Piasta. There's a lot of animosity. The city council is fighting with the developers who are trying to build new apartment buildings, and the residents are fighting with the developers because they don't want more apartment buildings, and the residents don't like the city manager. It's just like one after another of kind of contention and division in that community. So Heart and Soul is a neutral convener. We're not run by the city. Oh, is this some other baloney thing the city's doing? It's not. The city has nothing to do with Heart and Soul. So it becomes this neutral place where folks can come together in Piasta, express their concerns, and express what they love about the town and create that narrative about what they really care about. And the city council loves it because they don't have to do it, first of all. And the overwhelmed, overworked city manager doesn't have to do it. She would never have done it on her own. So those folks can benefit from the research and the data and all those things that we're gathering through Heart and Soul benefits the city, but they don't have to do it. And the residents benefit from it because they're the ones driving the process. They feel heard. Like Kelly was saying, involve everyone is a huge problem in small towns. The same 10 people do everything in this town. We fight against that at every stage of the process. So in Piasta, we've got high school kids on our team. We've got newcomers to the community on our team. We've got longtime residents on our team. All of those folks working together. And what's cool about Piasta is we've got about 8 people on the core leadership team that are running this project. None of them knew each other before this process started. They met each other around the leadership team table the first time we met. I think that's just a great testament to how we are finding different kinds of leaders to step forward. And none of the people around the table are the same 10 people type that do everything in the town. They were all stepping in and learning new skills, learning how to be a community leader, and learning how to work together as a team. And something we haven't really mentioned much either is each team has a coordinator. So part of, when Kelly was saying about the seed grants, and then the towns match that money locally with their own funds to fund this process, most of those teams hire a coordinator who's going to work locally. So I, as the coach, I work with that coordinator who is a town resident. She is the one who brought that team of people together. She networked around, she talked to people, who do you think would be good for this work? She brought those people together. I showed up at their first meeting, I was like, this is so nice to meet you. She did that legwork, and the trusted relationships that she built with those people on the team, it's hard to put even a price on that. Like how valuable that is that she's got this group of 7 or 8 brand new community leaders who have never served as community leaders before. And now, like one of the gals on the team, she's joining the Planning and Zoning Commission. Because she went to a couple meetings as part of the Heart and Soul process, and she thought, gosh, this is kind of interesting. I think maybe I'm going to join Planning and Zoning. We've had people on our leadership teams run for city council. These are people who were never community leaders before. So when I think about Piasta and the leadership gap that existed in that town, it's incredibly important to bring those people forward and put them into those new leadership roles. But I'm even more excited because now all those people on that leadership team, they're excited about building an endowment. They're excited to talk to donors and ask them for donations. And we all know that's hard, right? And they're all volunteers. I can't go out and build the trusted relationships with donors to do that work, but they can. They've already got those trusted relationships. So we're really anticipating the Small Town Dreams endowment building process typically takes, we give towns 3 years to build that $350,000 match to get the $100,000. I'm expecting it to go much quicker in Piasta because they've already been thinking about it during this whole heart and soul phase. Now they're ready to go. So it's very exciting to see the community engagement, community development part building up into something that's going to build a forever asset for this town.
Great, thank you. So in the description, we promised some tools and resources. So if we could advance the slide 1. This is a QR code for the Getting Ahead or Getting Started book. And here's what it looks like printed. Digital copy is much easier to use and distribute. In that book, it talks about the process. It gives lesson plans and tools and activities to see if communities are ready. But I want to talk about it broader than just community heart and soul. Something I think we've referenced but haven't hit as hard as when we learn what we've learned through the community heart and soul process has informed all of the rest of our work as a community foundation. We do something at our foundation, like many of you probably do as well, where we do a listening tour every 3 years. We are better at that because we've implemented what we learned. When we're helping train our communities on how to gather information, we learn things as well. So some of these activities, yes, they're very relevant to community heart and soul. They're also relevant in every other aspect of the work that we do. So now I'm going to switch microphones and head out into the audience. If there are questions, I will try to bounce around. I just ask that no one trips me.
That's no fun.
I think I saw a hand over here. And I will awkwardly hold this in front of your face real quick.
Have you guys ever tried to do this on a county-wide basis, or do you just do it, town by town? And if you have done it on a county-wide basis, what are the kind of pros and cons of doing that versus just on a town-wide basis?
I can take that one. I've coached 12 different communities in Heart and Soul, and 2 of them were county-based processes. During that readiness phase, one of the things that I really worked hard on with them is doing it as a county. You need to have a purpose to do it as a county versus doing it as a town. Don't do it as a county. It's just like, well, it seems like it would be easier. Like, none of our towns can get their act together, so let's just do it as a county. Shoulder shrug. That's a bad idea. But in the towns where we did it as a county, they convinced me that, no, we need to do this as a county because we don't have an identity as a county. We don't have a countywide economic development group. We don't have countywide tourism promotion. We don't have any way that the towns in our county are connected to each other to work together, especially in a day and age when those towns can't do it by themselves anymore. They have to have alliances and regional partnerships and regional collaboration. So the counties that I worked in, that was their goal. So it wasn't just so that every little town did Heart and Soul, even though all the little towns did a lot of this process themselves. That got all fed up into a county-wide identity narrative building process that really helped them create that for themselves. Some of them, one of the counties used that countywide research to do their county comprehensive plan. Because when you do a comp plan, you always have to have that public input part of a city or a county comp plan, and usually it's lame. Like they have a few little surveys, they have a few little community meetings that no one comes to, and then the consultants say, checkbox, we did our community engagement, now we're going to tell you what you already know, and that kind of thing. So to have meaningfully gathered data that goes up into those comp plans is really important. So there were, and I would encourage any of you to look up, there's a community, it's called Mercer County Better Together. It's a small, a very rural community in western Illinois that did Heart and Soul as a county, and the capacity that they've built and the nonprofits they've built out of their Heart and Soul process is impressive. And they've got a great website that shows you how they're using their Heart and Soul data to really focus on things that the county residents care about. And we did like a big summit in Mercer County where people from all over the county came together and did little presentations about their town. And there were people in that county that said, geez, I didn't even know that town was in our county. Like, that's how disconnected they were from each other. So it really was meaningful in that way for them as a county. Yeah. Yep.
Thank you. Next question.
So this will kind of extend on what you're talking about, because I think you kind of answered it, but we are literally getting ready to do some countywide strategic planning with our elected leaders and all of that, and have an RFP ready to go. So do you feel like this is a great tool for that, maybe in lieu of a consultant and that kind of stuff, or in tandem with? And then even if just heart and soul, what does the timeline look like to kind of work through the whole process?
Good question.
Yeah, so I mean, my opinion on that is that, if there's a county that government is leading a countywide economic development plan, then that's a different tool than what you'll get out of Community Heart and Soul. But I think that they work very well together in tandem, or having Community Heart and Soul lead that planning process, so that then when the government is beginning their economic development plan, they've gotten the residents' feedback. They have the, ideas, the vision, the wants from the community residents, that they can then take that Community Heart and Soul plan that they've adopted and build it into their economic development planning.
Yeah, because there's lots of requirements, like for cities and counties, like their strategic plans or comp plans have to look a certain way. So you are not going to get a comp plan out of Heart and Soul. But the research, the community engagement part that is needed for those plans can come out of this. So they kind of do, like Kelly said, they have to work together, but they're not replacements.
And building off of that, public funding can be a direct result, because a lot of public funding, federal and state dollars, they ask about community engagement, or what got you to this point that you're asking for this request. So we have helped local towns in our county secure well over $1 million in public funding, and all of them we've made the case. So a quick example, no one wants to fund pools. No one. It's like a money pit. But what we were able to do is we were able to get a small town a couple $100,000 in public dollars, because it's not just a pool. We know this, it's not a pool. It's a place where seniors do yoga in the pool, where the local high school athletes do conditioning, where there are a group of people who go every single day to the pool who have never gotten wet at the pool. It's a place people gather. And so because we had so much data about what the pool really was to that community of 1,500 people, we were able to make the case, and it was a no-brainer for the elected officials.
Well, you kind of just answered my question, but do you have a target population that you work with, and what is the smallest population you've worked with?
Oh yeah, I can answer that. The largest population, I think 30,000 people and below, and then we have one community that's 175 people in the wintertime, and it balloons to maybe 300 to 350 in the summertime. So yeah, I think that's the size. Does that answer your question? Yeah. And I'm not sure if we answered this question. How long does this take? It's 18 months to 24 months. And I know Jason has been doing this for 10 years, and he may have done it. He may have the world record for underneath that window.
Well, yeah, I mean, a lot of the time frame is very fluid, because if you do this process correctly, it kind of never ends. Like that stewardship phase, that phase 4 part where you are really embedding decision making into the processes in the community. Do you make decisions based upon what residents really care about? Like if they keep doing that, then it never really ends. But it's really what Josh is talking about is, when do we finish that training? Like when do we train the team up and get them launched into the next phase? And 18 to 24 months is typically the range in which we deliver those final trainings, happen in that 18 to 24 month period. But there are towns that have accelerated timelines. They have their own, they have to get it done for a different reason. Like the comp plan is starting in July. We have to be done by June so we can get the data in there. All right, let's see what we can do. So there are ways that we can accelerate it, but 18 to 24 months is typically what most towns, and it's based on town capacity. If the town is going to go faster, they need to work harder because we still have to do the same things.
I saw a hand back here. I
Some
see
over
a
there.
couple now.
So I think I've got a bit of an understanding of how this works, but what role does the Community Foundation, like what is the Community Foundation's role in all of this? Because it seems very community focused. Can you tell us what we do?
Sure, yeah.
I'll start with that, and then you two can fill in. So I think we get the coach training. So we are trained as coaches and provide the coaching to the communities, but each community then has its own coordinator that is really doing the, kind of day-to-day work or the, making the connections, the contacts, and leading it on the local level. So it really, I think one of the things though to emphasize is that this really looks different for each community foundation that's involved. Josh's program looks different than ours, than, Jason's and Brian. We all implement this differently and probably have a slightly different model or way that, our coaches are embedded with the communities. The financial support that we provide is different. So we can develop our own budgets and decide, how much, if any. I think there's some community foundations that, aren't able to fund anything. And so they really look at, using the contribution from Heart and Soul and maybe having the community do a local match. So the amount of time, how we structure it, the financial contribution is really different for each community foundation. And I think when you're developing the model and looking at how you're going to do it, that's kind of one of the things that can be, a little bit difficult or challenging, trying to figure out what works best. But then as you get into it, I think that's one of the best things about this model is that you really can adapt it to what works best for your community foundation and what works best for your communities. And so as we've kind of gone through the process, we've figured out what works best for us. Anything else to?
One, I would say too, the other benefit of having this national network of other foundations that have done it is, I've talked with both Kelly and Josh as they were developing their programs, like, how does your foundation do this? Well, here's how we do it, and this is the constraints that I work with at our foundation. It might be different for you. So that's one of the things that I've really benefited from is learning from other foundations how they do it and adapting it, like Kelly said, because every foundation is different, every little town is different, every region is different, and New England is different than the Midwest. Like all those sorts of things matter. So we are able to really think about the resources we bring to it. But I think the benefit that I bring to it to our foundation as a coach is now, since I've worked in all these different communities, I have trusted relationships with all of those towns, and they know me, and they know they can come to me even years later. Hey, Jason, do you have any grants that could support this? We're trying to do a community center rehab, blah, blah, blah. I do. So I can help them. So that's the benefit to our foundation, and why we do this process is now I have a long-term trusted relationship with people I didn't know 2 years ago.
Can I get really, really specific to your question? So like they said, everybody implements it differently. What we specifically do is we embed a coach, which what that means is one of our community engagement staff members, 1/4 of her role is coaching community heart and soul. So you take her total position, has 4 different parts, each part's about 25%. And then we provide some funding to the communities, and that really varies community foundation by community foundation. That's how it started for us. But because of what we've learned in the process, now we have one of our donor engagement officers attend certain things because we have found that through the process we identify donors. And we want those conversations to happen and happen naturally. So we have our donor engagement officer get to know the community through the process. One of our communication staff members is in the community to get pictures and to get to know people. So it's evolved a little bit as we realize what the end results are, and where we need to position ourselves as a foundation to truly be a partner forever.
Yeah, and in our community, we have, from our foundation, we have 5 members of our foundation staff, including myself, that are certified coaches. And so we have engagement folks, we have research folks, that staff that are coaches. And so again, like Jason said, we have eyes and ears in all of these communities. We've built these trusted relationships. We also have hired what we have is leadership council members from all of our communities. We've hired non-Innovia Foundation staff to be certified coaches in these communities as well. So you can have coaches that are part of the foundation and then coaches that are from the communities. One thing that we don't do is have, if there's a member of our leadership council, they are not going to be a coach in their community. They're going to coach outside of that area just because of conflict of interest, knowing too much about what's going on. Coaches want to come in and we want to be neutral. And the beauty of Heart and Soul is there's no agenda. When you come in, the framework sets itself so that the community it truly is resident driven, and the community decides which direction they want to go. The framework points them in that direction. So.
All right, a question back here.
For the coordinator position, when you get those in either city or a county, are those paid, or do you give them any type of stipend to, especially like you were talking about doing a countywide for travel and things inside of those areas, and what does that look like?
Yeah, so I think all of us do pay the coordinators in some way, right? So yeah, and that's up to, each community or foundation to determine what that looks like. So for ours, I think we use, so we give each community $40,000. And that includes, so we have the $10,000 from Community Heart and Soul. We give $30,000 and then from the foundation, and then we require that the community comes up with $5,000 in local matching funds. They can use that however they want to. So then when we select the community, we have them submit a budget to us that shows, how much do they want to put toward a coordinator, how much do they want maybe for low-hanging fruit projects during that first year, or marketing materials, or event costs, food costs. So they can then put together the budget with those funds that they want. So I think our community did about $20,000 in a year for the coordinator salary. But I know there's other foundations that have far smaller budgets. Others have larger budgets, so it looks different. So either you want to take that?
Yeah, I can.
Josh.
No.
We definitely encourage folks to pay their coordinators because you just get a higher level of commitment if they're being paid for it. These are part-time positions typically, and one of the trickiest parts sometimes is finding the right person to be the coordinator, especially in very small towns. The human capital is just not there sometimes, and it takes very specific skills to be a project manager and to be a volunteer manager and know how to use social media and know how to write a press release. Like, there's lots of skills that it takes to be a good coordinator. You have to be a good connector. You have to like to talk to people. You have to be a good public speaker. You have to be able to run a meeting. Like, there's a whole list of skills that this person needs, and a lot of towns, very successful towns, usually have strong coordinators. And it makes our jobs easier as a coach. I mean, I have weekly phone calls with all of my coordinators, like in each town, and there's some coordinators when I talk to them, and they say, "Oh, how'd that go last week?" And they did everything that we talked about the week before. And there's some folks I talk to them and say, "How did that go?" "Oh yeah, I haven't really done anything in the last week." It's like, ooh, it's just hard. And that makes the processes take longer and all those sorts of things. So that coordinator is a really important person. And as part of that readiness phase, it's something we talk to people about. Like, who do you think the coordinator might be? Like, do you have anybody in mind? And we have profiles of successful people. Oh, like retired teachers are really good at this, or retired business owners, or people who need a second gig, like who are already successful in their freelance work. This could be a side hustle for them. There's lots of really good profiles, but finding that person is hard.
All right, a question back here.
So just to be clear, you're all taking on like 2-year, 3-year paid positions to do this process. And do you tell the coordinators you have a job for 24 months, or so it's a short-term part-time deal? Yes. Okay.
And we structure it so that, because we also pay for the coordinator, our grant goes to the community and the community hires the project coordinator. So it's not looked at as an additional part-time or full-time staff member of the foundation. They are hired by whatever the entity, usually it's the village government, hires, and they do all the payroll and things like that, or we're a step away from that, but our grant dollars fund it.
Yeah, and for us, it's usually a nonprofit. So that's an example of how, it can look differently depending on who, what community.
And also, is there a maximum size community that this works for versus any size community?
30,000 population or below. We have one that's just a little bit larger than that. It's a college community, and I would say it is more challenging. The bigger the community that you have, the more challenging more complex, because to get your core team of people from the community who are going to be focusing on this and have time and focus. In these bigger communities, there's a lot more going on, a lot more distractions. And it's a lot more challenging to evolve everyone in a larger community. But it still works. It's just different. There's pros and cons between the smaller ones, larger, and so we've worked with, from 175 population to 32,000 population in the communities we worked with. So,
did I see a hand over this way? If not, I'm going to head to the middle again. Okay, got you both. I'm going to stop here first.
What's the timeline to get trained to become a coach?
We actually have 3 coaches that are in the process right now. So there's a virtual online training portion that is over. I think it's over three weeks. It's about a 2 to 3 hours Zoom training for 3 different sessions over 3 weeks, and then there's an in-person session that's actually coming up in Denver. I think it's over 3 days. Yeah.
You mentioned that they cover the cost of.
Oh, and yes, and Heart and Soul covers the cost of airfare, hotel, food for all the coaches. So I ran a sports and education company for 15 years, and I would say the support and training that Heart and Soul and the framework they put together it would be 10 out of 10 in terms of the quality that they put together. And so you have when you partner with Heart and Soul with this, you truly do have a partner. For me, jumping in a year ago, working with 10 communities, not knowing exactly how I was going to get this all implemented, Heart and Soul provides support staff and training. We meet weekly. I can jump on a phone call. We do Zoom calls weekly. Each community coaches have a bi-weekly Zoom call to just check in, and the staff at Community Heart and Soul have answers for every type of crazy situation that all of us have been through. I mean, we could not stump them on anything they've seen they've seen it all with, I think, now 140 communities across the country. So.
All right, we have 2 questions on deck.
So we're a community foundation that serves a specific county, but we have a couple new affiliate funds that are starting up in specific cities or cities that are right next to each other. Is that a model that works super well? Like we already have an advisory board ready to go. Are there overlaps of conflict of interest as folks move forward?
Yeah, we have a similar setup where we have affiliate foundations within our 7-county region. They often serve as support for the actual teams that work in the towns. They don't become the heart and soul teams typically. Because again, we really want this to be inclusive of everybody in the community. So I want those advisory council members, 1 or 2 of them on the team, but I need them to help. So how do we reach newcomers to the community? And how do we reach young folks? And how do we reach, other constituencies? Because we need connectors. We need trusted connectors in those communities. So they'll participate that way. They're also really good once we get to the endowment building phase, if that's part of the process, because then that's the endowment that we create is likely going to be live with them. Like they might be on the grant making committee and things when that endowment starts to pay out. So they've got a vested interest in it, but they usually don't run the process. Does that help? Okay.
All right.
I'm wondering how Community Heart and Soul is funded. If they pay for everything, where do their funds come from?
All right, we will let Al take this one.
We are a family operating foundation. So our founder is our sole contributor. We don't take contributions really from anywhere else. We are blessed to have such an attractive budget and to be able to offer this. But Lyman Orton, who is, as he calls himself, the proprietor of the Vermont Country Store, which is an online and catalog company and a multi-million-dollar a year business, is what he's the founder of. And he is very directly involved in so many ways on how we operate as board chair. But Mark, as our president, is certainly our day-to-day leader. And we are really blessed, again, I'll say it, to have this amount of money to offer communities. It's just, I will tell you personally, every morning I wake up and pinch myself that I get to do this for a living every day. So.
Great. As I walk, it's also a passion project of his because he grew up in a small town. And like all of us realizes that small towns look different now. And I think somebody, I forget who, referenced that all small towns know they need to do something, but aren't sure what. And so that's what drove him to lead this work.
So the commitment or the investment from Community Heart and Soul, the $10,000, is that a single gift? And if you have multiple counties, you have to disperse that, or multiple. It's by each community that you serve within
Per town.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. And they have to match it. It's a matching grant.
I'm going to take one quick look around the room. One more question.
But going back to her question, if it's a county-wide initiative, is that county considered one community?
Yeah, so it's per plan, per project. So if you're doing, whether it's one community or a county-wide, or I think there's a couple that have done, maybe 2 communities, school districts, so they'll look at the school district coming together, which is maybe 2 communities, but it's per plan.
But I will say, if you're doing a project on that scale, the seed grant and the matching funds will not be enough. Like they'll need to raise extra dollars to support that work because there's a lot more travel, there's a lot more events. The coordinator might have to be paid more hours per week to do a project of that scale. So you got to keep that in mind.
All right, we will be around.
One more question.
Okay, we will be around for a little bit. If you have questions, a couple reminders. Don't forget, if you are interested in the dinner, please see one of the community see Paul specifically. He's flashing the signs. We'll be around here. You had a lot of choices of where you could go today, but you chose to be here. So thank you all very, very much.
Thank you, Brian. We so appreciate you, as Brian said, being here this morning, spending time with us. I had a little red dot on my hand to remind me of something that I just want to stress. I know sometimes the word rural gets definitely associated with us, and it is rural in many of the small towns. But also, if you have the name Greater in front of your foundation name, one of the problems you might have is that the city that comes after Greater is often seen as the focus by smaller communities around your foundation. I was born in Bergen County, New Jersey, okay? And my town was 18 to 22 miles from Manhattan, depending on where you were going, right? My town is still less than 10,000 people. It's still a small community. In fact, Bergen County, one of the most populated areas in the country, is made up of towns mostly of less than 30,000. So just to define what small town means, it means small town. Doesn't matter where it is. So just to kind of stress that for you. But can we have another hand for our fabulous panel here? And that video, by the way, I kind of kept that as a surprise for Mark and Justin. It was the first time they'd seen that video this morning, so that was pretty great. Carl, I'm going to turn it back to you. Thank you for being our host.
Thank you. Just as a reminder, feel free to provide feedback in the app. And again, we're going to ask one more hand for our wonderful panelists and a little gift on behalf of KACF. Thank you for sharing your time and expertise with us today. Be sure to check them out if you have more questions.